Hello, good morning, students of class 12th Commerce. Welcome to Panda Sir's virtual class on macroeconomics. Today, our topic of discussion is central bank, its functions, different monetary functions, and in monetary functions, we have already discussed different quantitative measures to control credit and money supply in the economy. And today, we will be discussing the qualitative measures or the ways which are listed in qualitative measures to control the money supply in the economy and credit. So the first point in qualitative credit control or qualitative credit control is margin requirement. So what is margin requirement? Margin requirement, you see, whenever we apply for a loan, we need to provide some security. Without security, no bank is going to give us any loan. So, margin requirement is the difference between the actual value of the security and the limit of loan on that security what the commercial bank is going to give us. So how the chain of sequence are related to each other, just try to understand. So margin requirement, it is imposed by the central bank on commercial banks. That commercial banks, while advancing loans, they put margin requirement on the customers or on the investors. Suppose margin requirement is 80%. That means that suppose an investor gives a security worth 100 rupees, then he will be supplied with an amount of loan that is equal to 80 rupees only. So that 100 minus 80, that 20 is the margin requirement. That means 20% less than the actual value of the security. So now what will happen when margin requirement is imposed? Just to try to understand. So higher is the margin requirement, that is, suppose the government increased the margin requirement from 20% to 40%. Now the investors from its security worth 100 rupees, he will be getting only 60 rupees of loan because the margin requirement now is 40%. So, in that way, the investor would be discouraged to avail loan and invest in the business. So, the investor is not taking loan, that means less investment. Less investment results in less employment, and less employment results in less money supply and less purchasing power. In this way, by increasing the margin requirement, the central bank controls the money supply and tackle inflationary situation or a situation when prices rises. Purchasing power means the ambition of the central bank is to reduce the purchasing power of people, common men, so that they can purchase less and the inflationary situation will be controlled. On the other hand, when there is a deflationary situation, that means lack of demand, lack of income, lack of investment, lack of initiative by the investors. So in such a case, the government would wish or would like to supply more money to the money market so that the investment would be more, the level of income and employment would be more, and people's purchasing power would increase, and the level of aggregate demand would increase. So, in order to do this or in order to achieve that goal, what the central bank does is that it would reduce the margin requirement. Suppose the central bank reduced the margin requirement from 20% to 10%. That means out of security worth 100 rupees, now the investor will get a loan up to 90 rupees. So obviously the investor would be encouraged and he would take loan, he would invest. So level of investment, level of income, level of employment, and the level of purchasing power, and ultimately the aggregate level of demand would rise in the economy. So that is the importance of margin requirement. Then comes moral suasion. So it is quite closely related to direct action. So moral suasion, it is followed by direct action. So what happens in moral suasion? That is, the central bank designs some policy keeping in mind the whole economy. The central bank designs some plans and policies, and it expects that all the commercial banks would be working or functioning according to the policy of and plan and policy of the central bank. What the central bank has designed, the commercial banks must be following and must be acting accordingly. So sometimes what happens, some of the commercial banks, they do not follow the guidelines devised by the central bank. And in such a situation, as we take different actions like punishment, like making someone to stand in the class who becomes unruly. The same way here, the job of the central bank is to put them again into the mainstream or the main line, so that they would be following the policies and plans devised by the central bank. So in order to that, in order to achieve that goal, what the central bank does is that it gives moral suasion. Moral suasion from in the way of speeches, in the ways of notices. Means the central bank sends notice, gives speeches to encourage the commercial banks to follow its guidelines. But after doing that, if the commercial bank still don't follow the guidelines prepared by the central bank, then comes the next step. The central bank takes direct action like cancelling the license and many more. That is direct action on the commercial banks by the central bank. In this way, the central bank regulates the economy and controls the inflow of money into the money market, and maintain the general level of equilibrium in the market, so that there is neither inflationary situation nor deflationary situation. Then the last point is selective credit control. This is something technical you need to understand. So what happens under selective credit control? The central bank gives some privileges to particular or selected sectors. Like, for example, suppose the production of food grain is not sufficient and the government has a master plan to be self-sufficient in the production of food grains. So what in that case, what they would do? They would try to encourage the farmers so that they would produce more and India becomes self-sufficient in the production of food grains. And you know, we need to invest when we do farming. So farmers also need money to invest so that they can increase their level of production. So what the central government would make a policy so that the farmers would be getting loans at a cheaper rate than other sectors. For example, for industrial purpose, if you have to pay 10% interest, then for agricultural purpose, you will be paying only 4 to 5% of rate of interest. So in that case, farmers would be encouraged and they would invest more in farming, and India will become self-sufficient in the production of food. So in this way, there are two types of selective credit control. Something is positive and something is negative. So what is positive and what is negative? The example just I gave you is an example of positive selective credit control. In this way, under this category, the central bank makes such plan that more amount of loan is channelized towards a particular sector, towards a selected particular sector, like in our example, the agricultural sector. And on the other hand, the government sometimes makes negative selective credit control, and under this heading, what the central bank does is it tries to reduce the level of investment in some particular sector. So, in order to do that, what the government would do is that it would make such plans that the rate of interest in that selected area, in that selected sectors would increase, and investor would be getting discouraged to invest in that particular sector, and more loans would not be diverted into those sectors rather than to some other sectors. That is negative selective credit control. So these are the tools which comes under the qualitative measures of controlling credit and inflow of money into the money market, and the government does according to its requirement, according to the situation of the economy, the government follows different steps, takes different actions to control the amount of credit. So this is all about qualitative measures of credit control, and this is everything is completed from money and banking chapter. So our next discussion is actually in macroeconomics. It is aggregate demand, but here we will take a pause and we will start our next paper, that is development economics. So from today onwards we will be discussing development economics, so be prepared for that. And the money chapter and banking chapter, I have sent all the question answers including short question and long questions today only. You just receive that and make a copy in your notebooks, and if you are getting any trouble then please ask me. Thank you and have a nice day.